Hello everyone and welcome to today's Toolbox Tuesday. So we're diving into something that so many parents notice, but they might not just know what it is or have a name for it. And it's called Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, or RSD. Now RSD is associated with ADHD, okay? And when we think about RSD, I want you to think about this. If your child struggles from, they crumble after criticism, right? Just maybe one, it might even be constructive feedback someone's giving them. And you may notice that when they receive that feedback, they might overreact. Or it might just be a look someone gives them and they may shut down, right? Just after one gentle correction, all right? If any of that sounds familiar, go ahead and drop that in the chat. Just say yes. And also, if you're watching this live or on the replay, I always love to know who's tuning in, so just let me know that you're here. So, getting back to RSD, or rejection sensitive dysphoria, okay? So what it is an intense emotional sensitivity to real or perceived rejection, criticism, or failure, okay? This doesn't mean that anything is wrong with your child, but it can, with an ADHD brain, it's a lot harder to be able to manage emotions. And so when we say just one thing to a child, and again, it could just be, gentle correction, in their mind, they heard that they're the worst person ever. So it's very common to have, RSD be associated with someone with ADHD because their nervous system simply reacts faster and more intensely, right? So it's not that they're being dramatic. It's really a neurological response, okay? So, and again, an ADHD brain is a lot more emotional and a lot more emotionally reactive, right? So the amygdala, right, that part of the brain that is in charge of the emotions, it can be, again, like I had mentioned, slower to regulate in an ADHD brain. So it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your child. It's just literally science. It's how their brain is working, right? How their brain is wired. So what it might look like in kids. Say you give a gentle correction, or it could be harsh, whatever it is. Gentle correction, maybe some negative feedback, right? It could look like a child receiving that feedback, crying, yelling, melting down after that small correction. And they may say things like to themselves, I'm stupid, or nobody likes me. And they might have extreme perfectionism. And they might avoid challenging tasks because they're afraid of rejection. It might cause difficulty in friendships, when they tend to be a little extra sensitive. They might feel left out even when they're really not. And again, they might just not want to try things for fear of being yelled at. So often, though, parents or adults will misread RSD as a child overreacting, a child being manipulative, or a child seeking attention. Okay? But again, this is how their brain is wired. So they're not being dramatic, they're not being manipulative. Literally, their brain is taking in the negative feedback as it's the worst thing in the world. It is, catastrophic, and that they're just the worst person in the world and they can't do anything. So if that sounds like something that your child has experienced, just drop a me in the chat. And I'll share with you on a very personal note, I have struggled with that. Most of you know that I have ADHD and I have struggled with RSD, being sensitive to criticism and thinking when someone gives me constructive feedback, then it's like the end of the world and I'm the worst person ever. And pretty soon I'm going to be living under a bridge with a shopping cart. And that's just where my brain goes because that's how it's wired. right? But when we know better and we understand the ADHD brain, we can support kids in a way that, you know, supports the way that their brain is wired. So, let's talk about some ways to support a child that is struggling with RSD, okay? First, you're gonna want to validate their feelings, right? That felt really big, right? I see you. So save the lesson and the logic for later, okay? Just validate them, all right? And then you're gonna want to, as the adult, separate the behavior from identity, okay? Messing up doesn't make you bad, it makes you human. That's a great thing to say to a sensitive child, okay? You're also gonna wanna normalize mistakes and model self-compassion, right? Show them that, yeah, even mommy makes mistakes, even daddy makes mistakes, but it's okay because that's how we learn. And I'm gonna show myself compassion and love because I'm not a bad person because I made a mistake, right? What else? Sorry for that pause. Let's see. What else did I want to talk about that? Again, reframe failure as feedback. Instead of you got it wrong, you might want to say, you're learning how to do hard things. You see that like little tiny tweak? You could use proactive scripts, right? Hey, I'm about to give you some feedback. Do you want to hear it now or in a few minutes? Right? Because you're preparing their brains for receiving whatever you're going to say. All right. So again, if your child struggles from RSD or rejection sensitive dysphoria, okay, you're not alone. All right. RSD is real. So when you may think your child's being dramatic or overly sensitive or, you know, manipulative, they're not, right? It's hard. RSD is hard experiencing as the person who has ADHD, but it's also hard for the person on the other end, like the parent, right? But just know that with the right tools, it does get easier. And just remember, the goal is not to remove the problem, okay? You're not going to remove the problem. You're not going to remove all rejection from their lives because let's face it, that is real. Everyone's going to experience rejection at some point. The goal is to help them feel safe and confident enough to move through it, right? So again, if your child struggles with RSD, drop a me in the chat and, you know, let's explore this together. It's not the end of the world. Your child is not being horrible, dramatic. It really is the way that their brain is wired. So if you have any questions for me about RSD and how it relates to someone with ADHD, go ahead and drop it in the comments or send me a DM. But that's all I have for today, and I hope that everybody has a beautiful rest of your Tuesday.